town had 47 people. Everyone knew everyone. That's what they told me when I arrived. A quiet place, safe. The kind of town where you don't lock your doors at night. But they forgot to mention one thing. In a town where everyone knows everyone, you notice when something doesn't belong. And what I saw walking down Main Street at 3 a.m. didn't belong to this world. Small towns have secrets. The kind that don't make it into newspapers. The kind that get buried with the people who witnessed them. These aren't urban legends passed around campfires. These are real accounts. From real people. In real towns that you could drive through tomorrow. Towns with populations under 500. Where everyone knows your name. Where nothing ever happens. Until it does. Before we pull back the curtain on these forgotten places, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because here at Chills from Reality, we dig up the stories that small towns tried to bury. And once you hear them, you'll understand why. The first story takes place in a town called Millbrook, population 312, nestled in rural Montana, surrounded by wheat fields that stretch to the horizon. In the summer of 2018, a man named David Richardson moved there with his wife and daughter. They wanted a simpler life. Away from the city, away from the noise. They bought an old farmhouse on the edge of town, fixed it up, made it home. For the first few months, everything was perfect. The neighbors were friendly. The air was clean. His daughter loved it. But then October came, and with it, the visitors. It started with footprints. David noticed them one morning in the frost outside his bedroom window. Bare feet, adult-sized, leading up to the window, then stopping. Just stopping, like someone had stood there, watching them sleep. He checked with his neighbors. Nobody had been walking around barefoot. It was too cold. He let it go. Probably some kids playing a prank. But the next morning, there were more footprints. Same place, same window. And this time, there were handprints on the glass. Small ones, child-sized, but wrong. The fingers were too long, spread too wide. David's wife, Sarah, started hearing things at night. Scratching on the walls, soft tapping on the windows. She'd look outside. Nothing. Just darkness and the wheat fields swaying in the wind. Their daughter Emma, only 6 years old, started having nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, saying someone was in her room, standing in the corner, watching her. Sarah would check. The room was always empty. They told themselves it was just adjustment. New house, new town, strange sounds. But deep down, they knew something was wrong. One night in late October, David woke up to silence. Complete silence. No wind, no crickets, nothing. He looked at the clock. 3:14 a.m. That's when he heard it. Footsteps. On the roof. Slow, deliberate, walking from one end of the house to the other. He grabbed his flashlight, went outside, shined the beam up at the roof. Nothing there, but the footsteps continued, right above his head. He could hear them through the ceiling, walking, pacing. He called out, demanded whoever it was come down. The footsteps stopped. Silence, then laughter. Low, guttural, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. David called the sheriff, a man named Tom Whitmore. He'd lived in Millbrook his entire life, 63 years. When David told him what was happening, the sheriff got quiet. Real quiet. Then he asked David one question. Have you seen them yet? David didn't understand. Seen who? The sheriff sighed, told him to come to his office in the morning. Alone. David went. The sheriff closed the door, pulled out an old file. Inside were reports, dozens of them, going back 40 years, all describing the same thing. Figures walking around properties at night, looking in windows, standing in fields, watching, always watching. The sheriff told David the truth. Something lived in those wheat fields. Nobody knew what, Nobody wanted to know. Every few years, a new family would move to town, buy one of the old farmhouses, and it would start again. The footprints, the sounds, the figures. Most families left within 6 months. The ones who stayed, well, some of them disappeared, just vanished. Their houses found empty, food on the table, lights still on, but no people. The sheriff advised David to leave, sell the house, move back to the city, forget about Millbrook. David didn't listen. He thought he could handle it, protect his family. He installed cameras, motion lights, locks on every door and window. It didn't matter. The night after he installed the cameras, every single one was destroyed, torn from the walls, smashed. The footage showed nothing, just static. And then, for a single frame, a face, pale, hairless, with eyes that reflected the camera's infrared light like an animal. David showed the image to Sarah. She packed their bags that night. They left the next morning. Didn't even take all their belongings. Just grabbed what they could carry and drove away. The house sat empty for 2 years. Then another family moved in, a young couple from Seattle. Within 3 months, they were gone too. The house is empty again now. For sale. But nobody in Millbrook will buy it. Because they know. They've always known. Something lives in those fields. And it doesn't want neighbors. Would you stay? Or would you run? Let me know in the comments. The second story comes from a town in rural Pennsylvania called Ashford. Population 206. It's the kind of town that doesn't appear on most maps. One main street, a general store, a church. That's it. In 2019, a woman named Rebecca Torres got a job teaching at the town's only school. 12 students, all grades, one classroom. She was young, idealistic, thought she could make a difference. She rented a small house on the edge of town, met her students, started teaching. Everything seemed normal until she noticed something strange about the children. They never played outside during recess. They'd stand in a group near the building and stare at the woods. Just stare. Rebecca asked them why they didn't play, why they didn't run around. They looked at her with blank expressions. One of them, a girl named Lily, said, "We have to watch. Make sure it doesn't come out." Rebecca laughed, asked what she meant. The children didn't answer. They just kept staring at the woods. Rebecca mentioned it to the principal, an older woman named Margaret Hale. She'd been teaching in Ashford for 40 years. Margaret's face went pale. She closed her office door, told Rebecca not to ask the children about the woods, not to encourage them to go near it, and under no circumstances should Rebecca herself go into those woods. Rebecca was confused. Why? What was in the woods? Margaret wouldn't say, just repeated her warning. Stay away from the woods. But Rebecca was curious. One afternoon after school, she decided to walk to the edge of the forest. See what was so frightening. The woods were thick, old-growth trees, dense underbrush. She stood at the tree line, looked in, and that's when she saw them. Symbols carved into the trees, dozens of them, strange geometric patterns, circles, triangles, lines intersecting at odd angles. They covered every trunk as far as she could see, and beneath each symbol, something was buried, small mounds of disturbed earth, like graves, but too small for adults, child-sized. Rebecca backed away, her heart racing. She turned to leave. That's when she saw him, a man, standing at the other end of the field, just standing, staring at her. He was old, maybe 70, wearing overalls and a wide-brimmed hat. Rebecca waved, called out. The man didn't respond, didn't move, just stared. She started walking toward him to ask if he was okay. With each step she took toward him, he took a step back, maintaining the distance. Rebecca stopped. So did he. She took 3 quick steps forward. He took 3 quick steps back, like a mirror, like he was mimicking her. Rebecca felt a chill run down her spine. Something was very wrong. She turned and walked quickly back to her car, got in, locked the doors. When she looked back at the field, the man was gone. She drove straight home. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about those symbols, those small graves, the man in the field. She did research online, tried to find information about Ashford, its history. She found very little. A few census records, some old newspaper articles, but one article caught her attention. From 1952, it was about a fire. The old schoolhouse had burned down. 12 children died, trapped inside. The article mentioned that the fire was ruled accidental, but there were rumors, whispers that it wasn't an accident, that something had been done, deliberately. The next day at school, Rebecca looked at her students. 12 of them, the same number that died in the fire. She asked Margaret about it, about the fire. Margaret's face went white. She grabbed Rebecca's arm hard, told her to never mention that again, to forget she ever read about it. Rebecca pulled away, asked why everyone in this town was so afraid. Margaret looked at her with tears in her eyes and said, "Because they never left. They're still here, in the woods, waiting." Rebecca quit that day, packed her things, left Ashford. She tried to report what she'd seen to the authorities, but when she gave them the town's name, they had no record of a place called Ashford. No school, no students, nothing. She went back, drove to where the town should be. The road was there, but the town, it was different. The school was abandoned, windows broken, the general store was boarded up, and the church, it was burned, collapsed, like it had been that way for decades. Rebecca never found out what happened, but sometimes, late at night, she gets phone calls. No one speaks, but in the background, she can hear children whispering, chanting something she can't quite make out. And then the line goes dead. She's changed her number 4 times. The calls always find her. The third story takes place in a small town in West Virginia called Harlow Creek. Population 193. In the winter of 2020, during the early days of the pandemic, a man named James Collier inherited his grandfather's house there. His grandfather had died at 96, lived in that house his entire life. James had never been close to him, barely knew him, but he was the only living relative, so the house was his. James decided to stay there for a while. He'd lost his job, had nowhere else to go. The house was old but solid, 2 stories, surrounded by woods, isolated, perfect for quarantine. The first week was uneventful. James cleaned, organized, found old photos of his grandfather. A serious man, never smiling, always alone. James found it sad. His grandfather had lived 96 years in this town and seemingly had no friends, no family, nothing. Just this house. James started going through his grandfather's belongings. In the attic, he found journals, dozens of them, dating back to the 1940s. He started reading. What he found disturbed him deeply. His grandfather wrote about the town, about how it changed in 1953, how people started disappearing. Not leaving, disappearing, vanishing from their homes in the middle of the night. The sheriff would investigate. Find nothing, no signs of struggle, no evidence, just empty houses. His grandfather wrote that he knew what was taking them. He'd seen it. A shadow, not a shadow cast by something, but a shadow itself, moving independently, crawling along walls, slipping under doors, and wherever it went, people vanished. James thought his grandfather had been senile, paranoid, but then he found the later entries from just 5 years ago. His grandfather wrote that the shadow was still there, still taking people. He'd learned to avoid it, to never be outside after dark. to keep every light in his house on, to never, ever look at the shadow directly. Because if you saw it, it saw you. And once it saw you, you were marked. James laughed it off, closed the journal. But that night, as he was getting ready for bed, he noticed something. A shadow on the wall, cast by nothing. There was no light source that could create it. No furniture, no objects. Just a shadow, roughly human-shaped. But wrong. The proportions were off. The limbs too long, the head too small. James stared at it, and it moved, slid along the wall, slowly, deliberately, toward him. James ran, out of the room, down the stairs. He turned on every light in the house. The shadow disappeared. He convinced himself it was his imagination, stress, isolation. But the next night, it was back, in a different room, on a different wall, always moving toward him. James remembered his grandfather's journals. Never look at it directly. Never be outside after dark. Keep the lights on. He started following those rules. Sleeping with every light on, staying inside, avoiding windows after sunset. But the shadow was persistent. It started appearing in multiple rooms, on multiple walls, always getting closer. James called the local sheriff, told him what was happening. The sheriff was quiet for a long time. Then he asked James whose house he was in. James told him, his grandfather's house. The sheriff sighed, said he kept it away for 70 years. Guess it's hungry now. James demanded to know what he was talking about. The sheriff hung up. James decided to leave, pack his things and go. But when he tried to open the front door, it wouldn't open. None of the doors would. The windows wouldn't break. He was trapped. The shadow appeared on every wall, surrounding him, closing in. James remembered one more entry from his grandfather's journal. If the shadow catches you, you become part of it. You become another shadow, another hunter. James grabbed his grandfather's journal, flipped to the last entry. It was dated the day before his grandfather died. It read, "I'm tired. 70 years is enough. I'm going to let it take me. Maybe then it will be satisfied. Maybe then it will leave." And below that, in different handwriting, shakier, written in the margin, "It's never satisfied." James was found 3 days later by the sheriff, alive, but changed. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't look at anyone, just stared at the walls. They took him to a hospital, psychiatric evaluation. He stayed there for 2 months. When he was released, he went back to the city. But he's different now. People who know him say he's hollow, like something was taken from him. And sometimes, when the light hits him just right, his shadow moves wrong, independent, like it's not quite attached to him anymore. The fourth story is shorter, but no less disturbing. It comes from a town in rural Idaho called Pinnacle, population 89. In 2021, a photographer named Claire Shipman was driving through Idaho, taking pictures of small towns for a project. She stopped in Pinnacle. Population sign said 89. She parked on Main Street, got out with her camera. The town was silent. No people, no cars moving, just silence. She started taking photos, the buildings, the empty streets. A diner with a closed sign that looked decades old. Then she noticed them. People, standing in windows, staring at her. Every window, every building, faces pressed against the glass. Not moving, just staring. Claire felt uncomfortable. She waved. Nobody waved back. She decided to leave, got in her car. As she drove away, she looked in her rearview mirror. The people were outside now, standing in the street. All of them, 89 people, standing in a line, watching her leave. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. Claire looked at her photos later. In every single one, there were people in the backgrounds. People she didn't see when she took the photos. standing in doorways, behind fences, in alleys, all staring directly at the camera, all with the same blank expression. Claire tried to find information about Pinnacle. She couldn't find it on any map. No records, no census data, nothing. It's like the town doesn't exist. But she has the photos, proof that it's there. And sometimes, late at night, she looks at those photos. And she swears the people in them have moved, changed positions, like they're getting closer, trying to step out of the frame. The fifth story comes from a town in rural Oregon called Westfield. Population 402. In 2022, a family moved there. The Chens, Michael and Lisa, and their teenage son, Aaron. They bought a house in the center of town, right on Main Street. The neighbors seemed friendly, welcomed them, brought casseroles, said all the usual things. But Aaron noticed something strange. Every evening at exactly 7 p.m., everyone in town went inside. The streets would empty, lights would go on in every house, and nobody came out until morning. Not a single person. Aaron asked his parents about it. They hadn't noticed. He asked the neighbors. They changed the subject, acted like he hadn't said anything. So one evening, Aaron decided to find out for himself. At 7 p.m., he went outside, stood on the front porch, watched. The street was empty, silent. And then he heard it, a sound, like wind chimes. But there were no wind chimes. The sound was coming from the other end of town, getting closer. Aaron stood there, watching, waiting. The sound got louder, closer. And then he saw it, something moving down the street, not walking, gliding. Hovering a few inches off the ground. It was tall, maybe 8 feet, covered in what looked like flowing fabric. But the fabric moved wrong, like it was alive, writhing. Aaron couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The thing glided closer, closer. The wind chime sound was deafening now. And then it stopped, right in front of his house. It turned, looked at him. Aaron saw its face. Or where its face should be. There was nothing. Just darkness, empty, void. And then it spoke, not out loud, in his head. A voice that felt like ice in his skull. It said one word, seen, and then it glided away, continuing down the street. The sound fading. Aaron ran inside, locked the door. His parents were watching TV, oblivious. He tried to tell them what he'd seen. They didn't believe him. Said he was making it up. But the next morning, the neighbors treated him differently. They wouldn't look at him, wouldn't speak to him. They whispered to his parents, suggested the family should leave. It wasn't safe now. Now that Aaron had been seen, Michael and Lisa didn't understand. But they felt the shift, the coldness. They decided to leave, listed the house, moved out within a month. Nobody has bought that house since. It sits empty. And every evening at 7 p.m., the thing still glides down Main Street, looking for someone else to see it. The final story takes place in a town that doesn't have a name anymore. It's in northern Maine, population unknown, because nobody lives there now. But they used to. In 2023, a journalist named Robert Park was researching ghost towns. He found references to this place, a small logging town that was abandoned in the 1990s. No explanation given. People just left. He decided to visit, document it. He drove up there in September. The road was barely passable. Overgrown, but he made it. The town was there. Maybe 30 buildings, all empty, windows broken, doors hanging open. He started exploring, taking photos, notes. The buildings were in surprisingly good condition, like people had left recently, not 30 years ago. In one house, he found a calendar, still on the wall, marked with appointments, dates. The last entry was October 31st, 1993, Halloween. And written on that date in red ink were 2 words. It came. Robert felt a chill. He kept exploring. In another house, he found journals, diaries from different families. He started reading. They all told the same story. Something had appeared in the woods. Late October 1993. Something old, something that didn't belong. It would stand at the edge of the forest every night. Just stand there, watching the town. People tried to ignore it, but it started getting closer. Entering the town at night, walking the streets, looking in windows. And then people started changing, acting strange, speaking in unison, moving in synchronization, like they were being controlled. The last diary entry Robert found was dated October 30th, 1993. It read, "We're leaving tomorrow. All of us. We've decided. If we stay, we'll become like the others. We can see it in their eyes. They're not themselves anymore. They're something else, using their bodies. Tomorrow, those of us who are still us, we're leaving. We're gonna burn the town, burn it all. Maybe that will stop it. Maybe that'll keep it here trapped. But if you're reading this, if you found this place, leave. Don't stay until dark, because it's still here. It never left. It's waiting." Robert looked at his watch. 6:30 p.m. Sunset was in 30 minutes. He grabbed his things, started walking back to his car, but he couldn't find it. The road he'd driven in on wasn't there anymore. Just trees, dense forest, like the road had never existed. Robert panicked, started running, trying to find a way out. But the forest seemed endless, and then the sun set. Darkness fell fast. Complete darkness. No moon, no stars, just black. And then he heard them. Footsteps all around him. People walking, but he couldn't see them. Just footsteps, getting closer, surrounding him. Robert turned on his phone's flashlight, shined it around, and he saw them. People, dozens of them, standing in a circle around him, wearing old clothes from the 90s. Their faces were blank, eyes empty, and they were all smiling. The same smile. Identical. They started walking toward him, slowly, in perfect synchronization. Robert ran. He doesn't remember how long, hours maybe, but eventually he found the road. His car. He drove away. Didn't stop for 200 miles. Robert tried to write about what he'd experienced, but every time he tried, he couldn't. The words wouldn't come. It's like something was blocking him. He'd sit at his computer, fingers on the keyboard, but nothing, just blank pages. He gave up eventually, stopped being a journalist. But he still has nightmares, dreams where he's back in that town, and the people are still there, still smiling, still walking toward him. And in the dreams, he doesn't run. He joins them, becomes one of them. And when he wakes up, for just a moment, he can't remember who he is. Like something is slowly taking him, even from hundreds of miles away. Small towns keep secrets. They have to, because if the truth got out, nobody would ever stop in them again. Nobody would move there. And these towns need people, not for community, not for economy, but for something else. Something older, something that's been there long before the towns were built. Something that uses the towns as bait, drawing people in, trapping them, changing them. And every year, more small towns appear on maps, towns that weren't there before, with populations that don't quite add up, with histories that don't quite make sense. And if you ever find yourself driving through one, if you ever decide to stop, just remember, in a small town, everyone knows everyone. And if they don't know you, maybe you shouldn't be there. Because once you're seen, once you're noticed, you become part of the story. And those stories, they never have happy endings. If this made you think twice about small town road trips, hit that like button and subscribe. Because here at Chills from Reality, we explore the places that time forgot and the things that never left. Stay safe out there, and remember, not every town on the map deserves to be visited. Some of them are better left alone. Sweet dreams.